I'll be a preacher, yeah.
Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Allie, and today I'm going to be reading books that are all slashers. I actually intended to push this video back until October. My hands finally on I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. If you've seen some of my recent vlogs, I've mentioned going to Barnes & Noble the day that this was released, and my Barnes & Noble, that is the closest to my home, didn't have it. And I already had it on hold at my library, but I knew it was probably going to be a while till I got my hands on it. But that day I ended up getting Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. Anyways, I got back home and got the notification that my library hold came through. So I snagged it because I really wanted to read this. So I am going to be talking about this book in today's video, but I'm also going to be talking about some other slashers that I read just, I guess, throughout the weeks until I post this. This might be a little repetitive if you've seen my horror movie video where I read books that kind of had to do about the horror movie genre. I read Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay, but I also read Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle in that video, but I am going to be mentioning it here again. If you would like to skip this part, if you've already seen that video, so this isn't super repetitive, by all means do it. But my first book up for my slasher picks is Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. Reading Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle, horror movies within books, and that is what this is delivering. This is about a guy named Misha who is a writer. He writes horror stories that now as an adult he is able to sell to production companies, and that's kind of where the story starts us off, and he's being told by the creators that he has to kill off his two main characters who are in a relationship and are gay. And this is where the whole, as he quotes, gay tragedy comes in to horror movies, where the gay is always killed off early, or the gay in the end, it's kind of like a heroic thing that they do that involves them dying in the end, where they never get to be the main character and they never get to be the final people of the horror genre or horror movie. And it has been so interesting. I have been eating it up and absolutely loving it. I feel like he's done it again. Last year I read Camp Damascus and it was the perfect summer horror read. I had such an amazing time with it. I feel like he does such a good job giving you the scares while also giving you this deep, meaningful book that really touches you, because this one, there's been times where like I've wanted to like tear up a little bit, but then there's times where I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's so gory and so good. Like the way he describes things are so detailed and just horrific, but in the best way possible. It's exactly what I want from a horror book, and he is just delivering it. I also bookmarked a part where the name was actually, he brought up Camp Damascus, which I thought was really cool. I spot an ad for the latest gritty R-rated superhero epic, Heroes of Darkness, hanging in one office, and a poster for some awards bait docudrama about the tragic, mysterious events at Camp Damascus in another. I thought it was really cool, kind of getting a little bit of Camp Damascus mentioned in the book. I think he mentions it again, maybe a page or two later. I can't remember for sure, but I always love when authors do that. Yeah, the one about Camp Damascus. It was a small theater, but even in that tiny room, I could hear through the static. I got the message, heard him loud and clear, Robbie. That's why God led me here. I mean, you guys know I'm a huge Stephen King fan, and I love when he leaves those little Easter eggs and plops in his other story titles or characters from old books and stuff like that. So it was just really cool to see. I'm enjoying it so much. He's creating a show. It's so cool because we kind of have that aspect of his life. He also is going home to a school reunion, which, but he's going home to a school reunion where he's not accepted out of the closet. And so you get a little bit of that aspect of living in a hometown where you're not able to be yourself and freely be yourself without feeling the pressure or judgment. And he's also trying to navigate a relationship with that. Then he has his horror characters from his past stories literally stalking and haunting him. It's such a fun ride. I definitely, if you like horror movies and horror books that are very close to what it would be like watching a horror movie, I think you would absolutely love this. It's so good so far. And I honestly, I have that much left. I'm so close. I am listening to the audiobook and I'm so glad I did. I was actually just gonna tandem read it, and I've been mainly sticking to the audiobook because it is so well done. It is absolutely incredible. This one goes into so much details. Some of the scenes are laid out like actual acting is going on within the chapter, and they do that in the audiobook where there's like characters acting it out. Whenever there's a noise that happens, you can hear the noise, like the keys jingling, or like when it gets gory and you hear the splurts of blood and everything. It's just a really cool experience. Highly recommend the audiobook.
I could do you right, and time will tell if we can connect.
I have completed it. I have been doing my cosplay on long legs. I thought I'd wrap up my thoughts on it. It did end up being a 5-star. I absolutely loved it. I feel like he really outdid himself with this one. I like this more than Camp Damascus. It was so good, and if anything, I'm just hoping that we continue to get horrors from Chuck Tingle throughout the years, even if it's one book a summer that is dedicated to the horror fans like myself. And then he can go back to his smut. But I need the one book a year. They have just been so amazing, and I feel like this is just such a good addition to the genre. And by saying that, I mean Chuck himself. Like, I feel like he's such a good addition to this genre. He does it so well, and it's so thought out and so detailed and horrifying. There was still, just with the little amount I had left that I showed you guys earlier, there was scenes where I was just like cringing up, like, oh my god, it's so gross. And it just, and again, it's the best ways. Like, he just does slasher and horror just so well, and I definitely think you should check it out if you were interested in this video and this subgenre. I feel like you're gonna absolutely eat this one up. It's so good. With that, I will say there's a lot of different ways that I feel like he could have wrapped this book up. I feel like he did kind of stick to it in a more meaningful way, which I didn't mind. It still is a 5-star for me, but I feel like he could have still went the other route of more gory. But I think in the heart of this book and what this is talking about, you kind of expect what is to come, but it is still such a beautiful wrap up, and he did not disappoint with the gory bits to get there. I definitely hope to get more horror books from him in the future. If I didn't express enough how much I love this book, oh my gosh, audiobook or just reading it physically, this story is so, so good. I feel like maybe it doesn't fit as much into the slasher genre as the horror movie genre, and that is why I ended up putting it in that video when originally it was just gonna be in this one. But I still thought it was worth the mention because I started reading it for this video and I just absolutely loved it, and there is gory, gruesome parts that are just like a slasher, so I feel like it could stay here. And I think if you're watching this video because you like slashers, I think you will like this book. Next up, I read I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones.
Can you shut the door? Can we intertwine? I'm not one to give flowers, no. Everything that's eventuality. Philosophy is kinda jaded, though. Heavy rules try to cut me teeth. I'm small up and no pictures on your phone. Found out how the house underneath. You say I'm acting like a vampire, no. Probably why I never show my teeth. I'm having trouble sleeping on you. I'm having trouble sleeping on you. I'm having trouble sleeping with you. You got 'em running circles in the track of your hand. Though I'm out there and never part of your plan, but it's worthless. And can it be your
I have been walking in my local cemetery that I absolutely adore every morning this week. I've been reading You Like It Darker by Stephen King. You guys can also check out that vlog. But whenever I finish my short stories from that, each morning I've been jumping into this and absolutely getting confused every single time. I did have to kind of stop the audiobook with this one or kind of do like a tandem because it can be rather confusing at times. I am somebody who adores Stephen Graham Jones, but I literally can tell you I had no idea what I was stumbling into with this one because it was not what I was expecting. This is very much literary horror, and it is, I feel like if you are a Stephen Graham Jones fan, you will absolutely love the writing on this. It's so good in a way of really describing his characters and doing almost this coming of age, but it's from the point of view of a teenage slasher, which, yes, he will remind you 50,000 times throughout this book that he is in fact a teenage slasher. It is rather repetitive. I think it's going to be super annoying for some people. I don't think that this is going to be everybody's cup of tea. And honestly, if somebody asked me which Stephen Graham Jones to read, I would say Mongrels or My Heart is a Chainsaw. Always My Heart is a Chainsaw. I love that so much. Over this one, because I feel like if this is your first Stephen Graham Jones, it might be a little off-putting for you to pick up his others because, again, it's repetitive at times, it's rambly, but I feel like the way he writes always reminds me of Stephen King, which you guys know I absolutely love. And I think that's why I adore his work so much, is that similarity, the nostalgic feeling of picking up one of his new books and almost feeling like I'm reading a classic is just, it never gets old. I absolutely love that about it. And I adored this story when it comes down to the friendship and that bond that there is between these two characters. But I'm not gonna lie, there was rambly bits that I felt like I didn't need. There was parts of this character that I just hated. Obviously he's a slasher, but like, I felt like I wish that I got to a point to where I loved this character more than what I got to by the end of the book. I felt like I should have felt for this character a little bit more, where I ended up just being numb with it and just thinking whatever happens to him happens. I think that Stephen Graham Jones was really going for a side to really make the reader feel for this killer and, you know, kind of root for them in the end. But I just kind of felt like it fell flat for me just because it was really hard to get over the gruesome kills and then also have this like heartfelt, meaningful book about this kid. I don't know, it was a really hard one to like navigate and to balance. And I think it also took out a little bit of the fun of what a slasher is all about, which was really hard for me and is still kind of hard for me to like navigate around because I feel like it's hard to have a more of like a meaningful book whenever you are just kind of in it for the thrill of a slasher. But with that being said, I again loved the writing and the majority of this, and I think it was just another great one by him. It's not a 5-star for me though. I wish that it was, but I think I'm landing at a 4 with it. I just wish that there was more to this. I wish that maybe it was a little bit more lighthearted and just fun and just slasher vibes versus getting something that is more deep and meaningful. I would have liked something a little bit more lighthearted and fun and almost like just making the character more of an actual villain. I think would have just been such a good time instead of almost turning it into like a psychological thing that you're kind of like getting into his head, which I do find really cool. I liked the criminology side of it, of getting in the mind of the killer and this slasher and why he's doing the things that he's doing. But at the same time, I felt like those answers weren't ever like cut clear answers either. So it just kind of left you wanting more in that regard than kind of just had me wanting it to just be more of just a fun slasher at that point. I still think that we could have had that deep, meaningful moment with pulling everything together and what his mom had to deal with, what his best friend had to deal with him, and all of that. Like, I kind of wish that we had more of that moment, but I will say I feel like this book is a little bit more unique than anything I've ever read because it is really deep diving into the killer's point of view, not really sugarcoating it, making it out to be he is what he is, but at the same time, really trying to make you feel for that character and make it more deep and meaningful. So it is unique in a way. I think it's cool. There's a lot of concepts about it that I really do like. I just feel like it didn't cover everything that I wanted it to. It makes me wish that it was more of a fun slasher, because I think I would have liked it more and rated it a 5. But I am landing at a 4-star with it. Those are my thoughts. Let me know if yours is different. I would love to know. Now, I am also filming a 3 books by Stephen Graham Jones, because I've just fallen down the Stephen Graham Jones rabbit hole this year and absolutely loving so many of his books that is what I'm going to be filming now, because I've officially read 3 books by Stephen Graham Jones that are all parts of different series. I didn't want to just read the My Heart is a Chainsaw trilogy and then just like call that good and that be 3 books by Stephen Graham Jones. I wanted to branch out and read some of his other ones, so it's not just this story or series. So I am going to be filming that today, and I'm going to be picking up the next one in My Heart is a Chainsaw, the Jade Daniels, I think is her name, series. The next one is Don't Fear the Reaper. I do hope to get to the trilogy as like a whole video concept, but since we're here and talking about slashers, you guys, I know I just talked about a Stephen Graham Jones one, but I think this could be a redemption. Although that one was great in its way and I gave it a good rating of a 4, this one could possibly be a 5, because I gave 5 to My Heart is a Chainsaw, and since this is a continuation of a slasher series, I thought it'd be perfect to include it in this video. So this is what I'm reading now, and I will check in with you guys on how I'm feeling. Not too many spoilers are going to be mentioned because you're going to have to read My Heart is a Chainsaw, but I will still tell you guys if this matches up with the same slasher vibes and what I think of it and how gory and gruesome it is, and if it's meaningful, if it makes me cry like My Heart is a Chainsaw. And I really just need to get to it so that I can then get to the last one in the series. I will see you guys soon.
You trust. What am I supposed to do when I'm on the run? I'm tired, I'm having trouble sleeping on you. I'm having trouble sleeping on you. I'm having trouble sleeping with you. And I probably deserve it. Whatever name you be calling me, hope you know this ain't worth it. If you wanna fall in love with me.
It's been a minute since I've checked in with you for this vlog, and since that time I have finished a couple more slashers. The last one I left you guys off with that I was starting is another Stephen Graham Jones, the Don't Fear the Reaper, and I'm now torn and I'm debating back and forth if I want to do a whole vlog on just this series. I mentioned it earlier because I thought it would be a cool concept to do a whole video, maybe even with spoilers. You can let me know if you do want that. I just did 3 books by Stephen Graham Jones, and then I'm literally talking about one of those books again in this video, and now this one too. So I just know it's very Stephen Graham Jones heavy, which I don't mind. I'm here for it. I would be down to do another whole vlog and like even maybe like briefly talk about My Heart is a Chainsaw, which is right there. Don't Fear the Reaper. This did not disappoint. I absolutely ate this book up. I think My Heart is a Chainsaw is always going to have my heart, being the first one in the, what is this called? The Angel of Indian Lake? I think that's what the trilogy is called. I also call it just the Jade Daniel series a lot because this does follow Jade. And this one, I loved the relationship dynamic that we got with Letha and Jade. I like that a lot. I kind of liked the continuation because it has been 4 years since the finale of the last one. And I'm treading lightly here because of spoilers. You really have to read the first book to jump into this one, or it is going to be completely spoiled for you. And you don't want to do that with My Heart is a Chainsaw. You don't want to miss out on that book. I feel like this was the best sequel though. I feel like he achieved just as much horror knowledge and just like geeking out on horror stuff throughout this book, just like he did the first, and I loved it. I ate up every bit of it. And just really enjoyed it. I feel like I can't really say too much because it is like a sequel, so putting it in this type of video, I can say slasher-wise, really good. It's gory, there's gruesome moments. I like that while we are still getting this main aspect plot of the story and following what has been tragically hitting this town and these people, and all of the like folklore and legends and stuff like that in between. What I also love though is that he branches off into these like little segments of another slasher moment. So it really does kind of feel like a slasher movie in a way where you're getting like bits of a story, but then it's gonna go to Jason and he's, you know, killing somebody else, and then it goes back to like what the rest of them are doing and kind of like back and forth, and he just sets up the scenes so well. He also plays a lot of tribute to horror movies with his like death scenes in this book, and just phenomenal. Absolutely loved it, and I have more movies on my watch list to get to now because of this book. And just like the first, the afterword, you guys, the acknowledgements are literal pages long, and I sobbed once again, especially at the end with him and his little tribute and like thanking his wife again and his kids. I was like sobbing. My emotions were already so like high strung from finishing this to then go into his acknowledgements, and I'm like, oh, he gets me every time. Like, oh, it's so beautifully done. Anyways, 5 stars. Again, if you guys really want that video, let me know. If you don't, or if I don't hear anything, I will probably still do one if I feel up to it. And this is how I'm feeling this morning. Like, just don't look at me. I literally had my sunglasses like covering up my under eye things, although they're clear. They're the Good Molecule ones, so like they're clear. Your eye bags are covered and you can barely even tell, but if you see something shiny, that's what they are. Is I'm trying to hide my bags right now. It's Halloween looks every night, and then it's waking up really early the next day. So I'm getting like a few hours of sleep every night, and then taking my kid to school, and then coming here, and then having to do this part of it where I am reading and reviewing and slowly dying inside. I think I last left you guys off at the old house. We've since moved. But I know I was going to be starting the second book in the Jade Daniels My Heart is a Chainsaw series. Speaking of Jade Daniel, I watched Scare Up the Vote yesterday, and it was so good, and I got to see Stephen Graham Jones for a bit, so thought I'd mention it. And there's so many amazing people on there, from Stephen Graham Jones, Paul Tremblay, Rachel Harrison. Hers was, I got emotional for. Anna Reeve-Du, who is actually like hosting this event. And then there's also a bunch of like film creators, like the creators of some of the Conjurings and like Chucky, and even like Mike Flanagan, one of my favorites, and his wife Kate Siegel. I love them both so much. And Joe Hill, Stephen King, of course. Just so many incredible creators. You should definitely check it out. Anyways, this is how I feel today though. But I wanted to read at least one more slasher for you guys to talk about. And so I picked up this one because I know that there's a Netflix movie on it. I've actually seen the Netflix movie, but it's been so long that I barely remembered it. I just remember some of the death scenes, and I remember them actually being pretty good. So I want to go back and watch it, I think, today. But there's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. It is YA, so I was a little nervous. It is a little bit thicker as well. But you know what? I just went with it. I had to do some stuff last night for looks, and I had about 3 hours left before my audiobook went back. So I kind of did a tandem where I went ahead and read some of it, and then I tried to finish it up with like the audiobook. The audiobook isn't like my favorite, but it wasn't bad either. Yeah, it says it's been almost a year since Makani Young came to live with her grandmother, and she is still adjusting to her new life in rural Nebraska. Then, one by one, the students of her high school begin to die in a series of gruesome murders, each with increasing and grotesque flair. As the body count rises and the terror grows closer, will Makani survive the killer's twisted plan? It is just a full-on slasher, and I've said this before, but you know what? Sometimes YA slashers are better than regular slashers. Like, they just really go for it. And don't get me wrong, there is kind of like a teen romance kind of going on here that is kind of sweet and cute, you know, but the heart of this book really comes down to the gore and how detailed they really get. And I'm always shocked because I'm just like, you think that they would have to, since they have to like hold back so much with YA already, you think that they would hold back more, but they really don't. It's like, we have to hold back this other stuff, so we're gonna give you full on blood, gore, all of it. And they really do. Like, it's intense. Obviously I've read worse, but I really, really enjoyed this. I landed at a 4-star, I think. And I'm excited to rewatch the movie and see what I think of it. But I just overall thought the romance aspects were cute. It kind of also gives you a little bit of like the Scream element, like Sydney and Billy. So you're kind of like wondering the whole time, like, is he the killer? Is he not the killer? You can't trust anybody. You're questioning them all. And then when you finally do get a name, it is kind of like a cat and mouse situation with the killer where you're trying to find him before he gets to the next kill, and like, what is his motives? And, you know, so it has all of those aspects that you love in a good horror slasher. With that being said, nothing unique, but she doesn't hold back and she makes it a fun time. And I feel like between the, you know, other moments, she really does keep the plot going to where you're not like getting bored, you're entertained throughout. And I think when you start wondering like, okay, what's gonna happen next? Bam, there's another kill. So it's very fast paced, and I actually read this in one night, so I had a really good time with it. Don't know if there's really much more I have to say about it. I think it's fun. If you are a slasher lover and you haven't picked up this one, I think it's a fun time. It's, again, nothing super, super unique, but at the same time, if you just want a fast-paced thriller slasher, here you go. So I did pause from this book. I did not read this when I intended to, and I did go ahead and read There's Someone in Your House a little bit back, and I remembered I paused that day after I finished it, and I filmed that part of this video, and I was like, I'm gonna put this in my slasher video, because it's a YA slasher that I felt like as I was reading it, I had a really good time with it. Little did I know that there is some backlash on this book not being what people liked. Maybe I am the minority here saying I actually really liked it. I thought it was really good for a YA slasher. And I had a fun time with it. Now, with that being said, I think it had been a really long time since I read any books with like any type of romance or any love interest kind of going on, to where maybe I had a little bit of like the heartstrings, you know, tugged at a little bit with having this little love interest going on or whatever that I just kind of thought was cute. But I had seen the movie that Netflix came out with a while ago, I feel like, and just could not really remember a whole lot of it, but I remembered liking it. So upon rewatch, I still think what they did with it was really cool as far as like the kills and like death scenes and stuff. I'm always like nervous about what I can say on YouTube. I never want to be flagged, but it is a movie. But those scenes, I feel like they did so well. It's gory and gruesome and intense and fun for a slasher. And I love those aspects, but this time around, I felt like it was a little off-putting. It's not that they are bad actors, I just didn't really care for how they went about the characters, which I felt was kind of odd. I don't know if it's because I read the book or what, but yeah, I didn't really enjoy the movie as much as I remembered. And this time through, I was like, oh wow, they really made this very predictable than what I remember. I don't know. Anyways, I thought I'd mention that. And lastly, I'm going to mention here that I'm starting my next slasher, which might be my last slasher I talk about in this video. And it is one you may have never heard of before, because I had never heard of it before until a group of people who I'm in a book club with mentioned it and wanted to do a buddy read. And I am so far behind. I feel like they probably have all finished this book and I still had not started it until today. It's a slasher, so I'm holding myself accountable for the buddy read to fit it into this video. I am starting it. I'm only a chapter in, and I do not have a physical copy, so I'm going to throw it up here. But this is Katie by Michael McDowell. It is my first Michael McDowell. I have had him on my TBR for a long time, but I know some of his other books. And those have been kind of ones that I've had like on my radar that I'm like, if I pick up a Michael McDowell, I want to read that. You know, I've heard really good things about it. I put it off, time goes on, you know how it is with TBRs. So I'm officially reading my first Michael McDowell, and it is Katie, and let me pull it up on Goodreads to give you guys a little bit of a synopsis. I don't have a physical copy of this, but I did have to buy the audio on Audible. I've had like some leftover credits for a while, so I've been trying to like use up some of them, so I just bought it over there. Katie killed for kicks and cash, ever so nimble at bashing heads with her little hammer. Katie Slapes was her parents' joy and certain fortune. As the cellar filled with corpses, the family coffers filled with cash. Pretty young Philo Drax didn't have a family anymore. Katie had finished off her grandfather and her mother and promised to put Philo out of her misery very soon now. It was a hard, cruel world for an innocent girl alone. But Philo was glad to be alive and eager to continue so. She had prospects of a romantic marriage to sustain her through her trials, while Katie, poor creature, had only her cunning and her hammer. Don't ever turn your back on Katie. The synopsis is very weird. I am seeing that people are loving this book. But I'm also seeing that they feel like the plot synopsis is a bit misleading. Looks like we're supposed to have like quite a bit of romance in this. And it is maybe horror because of the slasher elements, but it is supposed to be like a thriller that's gonna like keep us really into the story. And so far, I can't say that so. I feel like the first chapter was like really engaging and like really cool, a really cool setup for this story. We're being introduced to Katie and who her mom was and this lady who's taking care of her, and it's very ominous and eerie and like really setting up the story the way I liked it. But then we jump into the next chapter and it's like we're jumping to different people, and it just kind of threw me through a loop. I don't know if this is just because of the audiobook or what, but it just was a little off-putting for me, and I haven't been able to get back in that groove that I was liking before as of now. But I will keep you guys updated and let you know what I think of this slasher, and I absolutely love the different covers of this book so much. I kind of want to recreate like the Bloody Hammer moment. I think that'd be really cool. I'm back and I have officially finished Katie. This was a wild one. There is a lot going on with this story. I would suggest picking up the book, I think, for the writing and reading the physical, but the audiobook, for how old it probably is, was not bad. I didn't have any bad notes on the narration or the way the story was told or anything like that. But there was points here and there where I might have been slightly confused of who we were talking about, and I would have to like backtrack a little bit to catch back up or to pick back up on if this was Katie's timeline or if this was going to, I think her name was Vilo. That was a little confusing, jumping back and forth between them without having the physical. But besides that, I had a rather good time with it. It does feel like almost like one of the first slashers ever, because you do get these gory, gruesome moments, but besides that, you just have this core story that has like heartfelt moments and where you're really rooting for the main character and her journey in life. It was a little strange going back and forth between Katie's point of view, where her family is running this on the road pretty much business where they're scamming people out of money as they are telling people that Katie is a fortune teller, and then it's like in the moment while she's giving the fortune, she decides like if she thinks these people are really wealthy and they're carrying a lot of money, she's going to off them. And in the same sense, she's still after Vilo because I believe they're cousins, but they were living with her dad or grandfather, one of those two. To begin this story, they're living with him and taking care of him, and then he invites Vilo to come home, but she has to come in disguise as kind of like the new house lady or maid or caretaker to be able to see her grandfather or dad, whichever one it was. Upon arrival, they're putting the pieces together that she is his granddaughter or daughter, and that she's going to inherit all of his money. So obviously they're there for the money. And so this kind of starts this downward spiral of Katie wanting to go after Vilo. But in the meantime, Vilo gets away. She's living her life. We're rooting for her. I was explaining it to a friend, kind of like being a cozy read. It kind of felt like you're reading Little Women in a sense, because it's set back in time and the way that they talk to each other and all of that, it really gave me Little Women vibes. And then we would cut back to Katie, who was on the road, scamming people, offing people, and trying to find Vilo. I had quite the time with my first Michael McDowell, to say the least. I will definitely be picking up more of his books, but I am landing at a 4-star with this one. I feel like when I'm picking up a slasher, I want to really go ham with the slasher and like have a lot more of those moments. So it was just a little jarring going back and forth, and I felt like Vilo's story was very beautiful in a way, and Katie's story was unhinged and fun and very horror driven, but the two together just threw me through a loop a lot. Very cozy horror, if you will. Anyways, I had such a good time with this video and reading some slashers. If you have slasher recommendations, please leave them down below in the comments. I would love to read more. I've had such a good time with these. I will be picking up my third and the Indian Lake, Angel of Indian Lake trilogy from Stephen Graham Jones soon. So I'm sure I'll have some slashery things in that. And I have a couple more on my radar already that I will be getting to soon. But thank you so much. If you enjoyed any of these books, please let me know as well. Start the conversation below. And I will see you guys in my next video.
Just take my time.